her grandson ₹100 on his birthday. He happily told his mom that he'll buy candies with this money, but his mother explained that candies will spoil his teeth and it would be better if he put it in his piggy bank. Reluctantly, he agreed. A few months later, his piggy bank was overloaded with coins and notes. Both son and mother sat down and counted them and were delighted that the total was beyond their expectations. Again, this time, as a responsible mother, she advised him to put this fund into a savings account. She taught him to fill up the deposit slip. The boy tried, but he could not. So his mom filled the slip and helped him in his other endeavors. Years rolled by, and his mom is now proud of his savings habit. However, the amount is earning interest only in the bank. As a responsible mother, she did right in inculcating savings habit in him, but not beyond. This is a common story for all Indians. We are one of the highest savers in the world, and an average Indian family saves over 33% of their income, as said by LiveMint. Despite huge savings, we are still considered a poor country. The reason is that we do not know how to convert our savings into a good investment. Let us quote from Rich Dad Poor Dad. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich get the money to work for them.
Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Binod Shankar, Director Professor Biju Toms, Head of Department, Dr. Professor Kavita Desai, ASEL Coordinator, Professor Matthew Varghese, faculty members, and my fellow friends of the Department of Professional Studies. A very warm good afternoon to one and all present here.
Today, I, Shreyas from 4BCom IF,
and I, Ritu from 4BCom IF, are going to be your hosts. As described by Shreyas in his story, financial literacy is not something that's easily attainable by just anyone. Millennials and Gen Zs get jobs and earn tons of money, but then waste it on immaterial things. They don't really know how money works or how to make it grow. They know how to save, but beyond that, they don't really know how to invest.
This day marks the beginning of a new chapter in our lives with the incubation of our newest division, the Finance and Investment Cell, or the FIC for short, founded for the financial enthusiasts in our department, ranging across various courses who are willing to make a mark in this huge ocean that is the financial world.
And to start the day off, great leaders don't set out to be a leader. They set out to make a difference. It's always about the goal and not the role. And this is the perfect embodiment of our head of a department, Dr. Professor Kavita Desai. We now request Kavita ma'am to speak a few words on this occasion.
Ritu, I hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Respected Binod Shankar sir.
Ma'am, the voice is a little feeble, ma'am.
Yes, sure. Is it fine, sir, now?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Respected Binod Shankar sir, the chief guest for today's event, Director Biju sir, Matthew sir, my dear students, a very good afternoon to you all. So we've all assembled today on this virtual platform to inaugurate the most awaited cell, the Finance and Investment Cell of the Department of Professional Studies. Why I said that it is the most awaited and very much required cell in the department is because we all know that in the department there are many students who want to pursue their career in finance after their graduation. So one of the ways to develop their skills, knowledge, and most important, network for finance career is through these kind of clubs and societies. So there are plenty of advantages for students who join these kind of cells. Today, I'm immensely proud to say that this Finance and Investment Cell is completely a student-driven initiative with a vision to promote knowledge sharing among students on matters of finance, investments, financial research, and so on. This cell aims to provide a common platform for all students to learn through information sharing and works towards bridging the gap between the industry, and the student community by organizing various events. I take this opportunity to appreciate the efforts of Satvik and all the students who are instrumental in setting up this cell. I would also like to thank Matthew sir for being the faculty advisor to this cell. Thank you, sir, for all the support. I wish that this cell aims to develop financially proficient leaders of tomorrow who are also ethically sensitive and socially responsible. I wish that this cell will grow leaps and bounds and emerge as the most active cell in the university, not only in the university, in the country. I request all the students of the department to join this finance and investment cell of the department and make use of this great platform to indulge in quality learning while having fun. I'm sure FIC, the Finance and Investment Cell, will succeed to ignite the intellectual curiosity amongst the students. All the best to all the organizers, all the students, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. We are sure that your everlasting support will act as a catalyst towards the FIC's success.
The crisis may come, the crisis may go, but Christites will march on forever. What better proof exists than that of the formation of the FIC in times of this pandemic? It's clear that the FIC is here to achieve that mission. It's clear that the FIC have a clear vision. Without further ado, I would like to invite Satvik Babu, who is the member of FIC and who defines himself to be as good as his next investment, to elaborate more about the FIC.
Thank you, Shez. Welcome to FIC, Finance and Investment Cell. And this is a grand launch. And as you all know, we've been working on this for 20 days to 25 days because that's when the social media platform was out. But to be really honest, even before I start off the whole PPT, I want to first thank every single person who was part of the ideation, the whole team who created this whole event to be successful. First, I want to thank all of them even before I go, friend. So with that, I want to start off the grand launch of FIC. I want to introduce FIC to all of you with simple 3 questions. With the why, the how, and what is it in for you. So every organization needs to start with why. And that's why even this club is starting with the why. As you would have already seen the objective on your Instagram or LinkedIn, objective is very simple. Objective is to learn, practice, network, and repeat. As I told, in the whole point of FIC was to bring learning into picture. As Kavita ma'am mentioned, that this is to create professionals when they go out of university. So the whole point of FIC is to start with learning, then practice, then network, and then repeat the same thing again and again. So when we tell learn, it's not just for the people who are having finance background. People who don't have any financial background, we want to first focus on them too. So it starts off with ensuring that there's financial literacy, then making sure that we boost interest in finance, and then people who are already interested in finance, already enthusiastic about finance, we want to create a platform for them. So that's how we start with the learning process. We start with financially literating everyone who wish to become financially literate. And second, boost the interest in finance, not only in DPS, but we are also focusing on collaborating with other departments and other universities, which is already happening and it's in process while I talk. 3 is to ensure that we create a platform. That's how we start learning. Then considering we have learned, we want to practice it. So how do we practice? We want to ensure that the financial analysis skills, and then we want to make sure that there's hands-on practical experience through multiple projects. How are we doing it? I'll come to it in a minute. In the end, we want to network. Why do we network? Simple, we want to get different perspectives and ideate and create together an idea which comes to a lot of people. I mean, Mark Cuban once said, ideas are cheap. It's all about the execution. And for executing, you need a group, you need a platform, and that's what FIC is for. So it's learn, practice, network, and repeat. Next, I want to come to the how. So I spoke about the why. Why did we start off FIC? The whole team was so passionate about FIC during the time of COVID, the pandemic. We came together for simple reason that we wanted to create a platform. But how do we do it? So we started off with the four simple division with another division which to be added in the next couple of years after everything goes well this year. So first is the RAD. Let me take you through all research and analysis division, learning and development division, public relations, computational projects team. When I say all about divisions, we're not going to get divided into different divisions. Each and every single member is part of each and every division at different circumstances. So sometime in the first few months, you would be part of RAD, the next few months into LAD, then next into the public relation, and during that particular competition or project, you'll be part of the competitions and projects team. So here I'm telling you that all the four divisions are interrelated and interconnected. So how are we going about each division? Here I talk about research and analysis division. Again, look at the footer, that is learn, practice, network, repeat. Remains the objective and the mission and the vision of FIC throughout. What we talk about a research and analysis division. As you see, research is to see what everybody else has seen. We keep updating ourselves through newspaper, through articles and everything. But what we think, which others have not thought, that's what RAD is going to do. We're going to create a platform where we put out our ideas and ensure that we create something different through theoretical understanding and looking at patterns. This is mentored by Akansh Kotari, headed by Nishant and Joel. So this whole point of RAD is to make sure that you create this theoretical base and understanding of new updates or new discoveries in the world of finance. So as I mentioned, it's discoveries and updates in finance industry, theoretical basis and patterns. And when I say patterns, it's not just about the stock market and the investment you look at or the trading you look at. It's also about human beings and behavioral finance. It could also be corporate finance. What happens if debt increases and equity decreases? What happens if debt to equity ratio is so low? So it's not just about investment. It's not about stock market. It's about human beings. It's about corporate finance. It's about behavioral finance and everything else. Then we also focus on creating content and putting out to common public. It's not just for us to remain as members. We just don't want to keep the knowledge or keep the understanding we are having within ourselves. Whatever we learn, we want to give it out for public. So that's why we have our Instagram and LinkedIn pages where we'll be putting out our newsletters, our equity research reports, and our interviews, which we would be making sure that happens in the next 6 months. At the end of the day, the objective of RAD is to create a research journal of DPS where we are going to have economic and investment journals. It's completely focused on finance, economics, and investment. So a research journal of DPS alone. So that's the whole objective, where we also invite other university, other departments, research papers into that journal. So this is what RAD is. Then, considering we are learning, we are done with the learning part, done with the theoretical part, then we go to the learning and development division. So the future belongs to those who learn more skills and combine them in creative ways. So we would have gotten the basic structure and the perspective ready. But what do we do with it? We need skills to apply it. To practice it, we need skills. So that's what learning and development division is. It's a very simple division where we think of technical skills. We want to learn technical skills. And also, as I told, we create social media content, we create news reports and equity research reports, but we also want to create courses and modules for financially illiterate people. I could say that when I was in 12th and 11th, I didn't know anything about finance as much as I would know today. So it was probably, now I know 0.0001. That time I knew 0.401. So that all happened because of me learning skills so that I can execute the theoretical knowledge. So ensure that we learn technical skills and also create courses and modules, as I told, to make sure that people who want to learn more about finance but are not in the department, but are not able to come to this particular club, we want to create a course, create a module so that they look at the course and look at the module and get understanding of it. So we are planning to create a basic, moderate an advanced level of course where we, in the basic structure, you ensure that you learn about finance. In moderate, you learn about the markets, different verticals of finance. In advanced, we look at the new discoveries like AI in finance. The module and the course is getting created. Anirudh and Aditya are working on it now, and Nachapan is being mentoring them. So then the third and the most important thing is when you want to go into the corporate world, one must know about what's happening there. So in learning and development division, along with the technical skills, they will be able to look at the experience summaries of the DPS alumni who are in different verticals of finance. So let's say someone is in a particular company, that's your dream company, an investment management company, and they write their experience and put it in a summary and put it in one particular sheet of paper. Learning and development division will make sure that it reaches to you. How? As a member, you will put in your preference or your company or your interest in the particular industry. We'll keep on updating it every 3 months, and based on your interest, you will be getting a copy of the experience summary. How is that possible? How will alumni actually come and talk to you? That is based on the PR. I'll come to PR. For now, we got to know about learning, and then we understood about networking. We understood about practice. We will go to networking and repeating the same thing again. So learning is done, practicing is done. Let me go to the next thing. That money, we all know this man. The money was never a big motivation for me, except as a way to keep score. The real excitement is playing the game. Exactly why competitions and projects are. So this is headed by Ashwin and Aditya and is being mentored by Tanushri. So the whole point of competitions and projects is you've learned. You've practiced it, you've done using, or let's say if it's stock market, you've done virtual money. Let's say if it's behavioral finance, you've spoken to 3 or 4 people, but you want to apply it. You want to have a live project. So for that, we are planning to have quarterly competitions and also have some speed model building, because when we go into the corporate world, we can't just sit and do a particular model for 3 days or 4 days. That will be spoken by the industry experts anyway. And the third thing is one session, one project. That's the whole point of FIC. Whenever a person comes as a session leader, he wants to take a session in Christ University, the first thing we are asking them to do is to have a small project. That is for a 30 minutes to 40 minutes project, which is exactly like the way they do it in their real lives. So that helps them train themselves. So the whole point of competition project is you apply what you learned in your RAD division, then you learn the skills, and now you have to apply it and execute it. So that's the point of competition projects, and I'm sure Aditya and Ashwin, who have a lot of experience in going to multiple finance competitions, and Tanushri, who is actually, I can actually say that she's one of my role models when I was in college. So she will be mentoring the competitions and projects team, and we will be having Sunday project teams, and for 30 to 35 minutes, we'll be interacting about how to execute it in real life. We'll be interacting with industry experts. How is all this happening? How are we interacting with industry experts? It's all possible because of the public relation team. We're trying to ensure that we have a good network, and as you can see, pulling a good network together takes effort, sincerity, and time. That is what the public relation team is doing. So it's being mentored by Manav, and it's being headed by Tanmay, Purvi, and Lavanya. So the whole point of PR is one activity I would like to even announce today in the FIC launch is we want to network and connect the alumni with that of the whole FIC team. So how do we do it? I'll elaborate the same during the introduction of FIC to the members, but in simple words, we want to ensure that alumni is still connected to FIC because the industry, because we don't know what's happening in industry as a student. Tomorrow, I'll be there, you'll be there, we never know. But finance and investment cell as a platform will remain. But alumni will ensure that they'll be connected together. And how do we do it? I'll be telling in the introduction of FIC only for members, which will be, the link will be given, the Google form will be given, and you can fill it on, and we'll have a 30-minute session for the members only in the coming week. So I'll tell you how we go about connecting alumni with every single student based on his wish, based on his dream. So the public relation team ensures there's workshops, sessions, collaboration, and make sure there's synergy between the particular public relation, LAD, RAD, and the competition projects team. So we have internal synergies too. That's been possible only because of PR team. So now that you saw the whole Learn Practice Network, learned through RAD, that is Research and Analysis Division, practiced, that is used skills and all that through your competition and projects team and your learning and development team. In the end, you have the PR team who is making this all possible. So as I told, this is a structure which is being designed for the sake of making sure there's simplicity. The whole team is working together to ensure there's a learning platform. And what is it in for you? The alpha. So alpha is not that we have additional returns. As people who have finance background will know that alpha is additional returns over the benchmark and all that. In simple words, alpha is the beginning point. The result of this whole FIC platform is to make sure we all have a beginning point to go to our corporate world. To become a finance professional, we want to have a beginning point, and that is FIC. People who are not sure what is finance, want to explore, this is the place. 2, people who are curious about it, this is the place. People who are already passionate about it, this is the place. So as I told, this will be the beginning point to any part of the journey you are in. And second, it's a perpetual platform. I'm not kidding. Each one of the person who is there, most of them have created content, can create their own channels and pages on social media and try to glamorize themselves. But the whole point of creating a platform is to have a perpetual platform. All those juniors who are here, let me tell you that the divisional heads you are seeing, they know that they'll be a head for 4 or 5 months or whatever it is, but they didn't care about being a head. What they cared about was creating a platform, a perpetual platform. As I told, I'm here, you are here, or anyone's here or not, it doesn't matter. But DPS and Finance Investment Cell is here to stay. So that's a perpetual platform. We want to make sure that it's there for every junior of ours. 3, internal and external network. Again, as I told, the whole team came up during COVID, and I'm telling you, 70% of them didn't know about the other person. Like most of them didn't know who the other person was in the team. But during the pandemic, we ensured that we connected together. All that happened because of the internal network we had. So this helps me. Tomorrow, each one of us would be in different companies, but for sure, we will still be in touch and get to know about the new updates in their industry or in their vertical of finance. Then external network. As I mentioned, the third most important thing is to connect with industry experts and make sure that we network with them. 4th is the industry experience. So when they are coming in, they're going to give a small project, and for sure, this gives us industry experience. And the last few things I would like to talk about is the alumni connect. All the people you're seeing here, from Raghavendra to Devarsh Toshnial, all the people who are already part of the core committee team. As I mentioned, that the alumni are one of the most important people of core committee team, not just now, even for the coming years, because they are the ones who would be the guiding light. And we are ensuring that even today or tomorrow, we will be passing on, and we will be making sure that we'll be part of this club throughout. Then I can't talk more words about Matthew sir. He's been an inspiration for a lot of people who have been in the college now, who have passed out. And the second I pitched this idea to any senior and I told Matthew sir will be the faculty coordinator, they just told, you'll rock it, don't worry, I will not even look at the presentation. And this happened to so many seniors, I would say. And I'm really thankful that he's being the faculty coordinator, and I'm sure that he'll be the guiding light for the whole team. In the end, how do you become a member? So you can become a member right now. We will be putting out a Google form in the chat box. We will also be sending out to you on your WhatsApp groups. So it's the whole FIC club is based on membership. That is, we will have a small process to ensure that you come in. It is not because we want to know if you know about finance. It's just that we want to know, are you curious? Yes, you are in. Are you interested? You are in. Are you passionate? You are in. So you don't know what's happening in finance. Doesn't matter. We want more people like that so that we can work together and get new perspectives about finance. Are you interested about finance? You know, finance and investment is something I'm interested about. I want to explore. Come here. Passionate, man, this is a place. Next, look, we can follow us on FIC DPS on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can get on new updates. And in the end, I would like to say we will be creating a Facebook group. If you are in Facebook and you're not able to come to Instagram and LinkedIn, we have not created a Facebook group, but if most of the members need it, we'll be creating a close-knit Facebook group. So the closed group will be available as soon as you register through the Google form. That's all. Thank you. Learn, practice, network, repeat. Thank you, Shreyas. That's all from my side.
Uh, Thank you, Satvik. We can't wait to dive deep into the world of finance along with the FIC.
Conquering the financial world is no easy task. Determination and skill to climb to the top, be it the top of a mountain or the top of the financial world. And our keynote speaker for today has managed to do them both. We take immense pleasure in having with us today Mr. Binod Shankar, a CFA charter holder as well as a board member of the CFA Society, a fellow chartered accountant, entrepreneur, and a man with a passion for mountain hiking. And recently, a podcast host of his own podcast titled The Real Financial Mentor. We are all very eager to learn a lot from him. So please use this opportunity to ask questions on the chat box and get them answered by none other than the financial wizard himself. Please welcome Mr. Binod Shankar.
Thank you, Ritu. Satvik, can you share the presentation, please?
Definitely, sir.
And if you can give me controls, thank you.
Yeah, I've given you the controls, sir. You can start off. If you're not able to do it, I will be doing it.
Sure. You upload the PowerPoint, yeah? Maybe you can run the presentation from your side. Right. Thanks, Satvik. Thank you so much. Yeah, and you're off. Thank you, everyone. This is a good afternoon here in Dubai as well. Thank you so much for inviting me, Satvik, as well as Biju, Matthew, and Kavita. It's good to be here. It's good to be connected with and focused students who want to spread financial literacy, who want to learn about which is what I am quite involved in. So without much ado, let me jump to the next slide and start with an interesting story. Next slide, please. So I'll start from my journey because I think stories are quite compelling. And just halt it there, Satvik, one point at a time, yeah? Just stop there, thank you. So the first point is quite clear, right? Mediocre BCom. This is where we start my story, right? So in case you thought about a superstar right from day one, I wasn't. And that's lesson number one. You don't need to have a great past to have a great future. So I didn't study much. I didn't go to college. I skipped class. And of course, inevitably, you get what you work for. And I got a second class degree. In sharp contrast to my colleagues or fellow students who got first class degrees, right? Now that is humiliating, right? As you can imagine. Next point, please. So CA. But before CA, a couple of failures in CAT or MBA. Again, didn't study much. Didn't have any guidance, no vision, right? And this is one very important point about career. You need mentors along the way. But someone said, try CA. I tried CA. I loved it. A lot of diligence, a lot of focus required. It was a mix of accounting, tax, audit, a bit of finance as well. And that was a moment of redemption, sort of which cleaned up my BCom mess in degree, right? Because I nailed CA in the first attempt. And you can say in terms of confidence, I never looked back. And in terms of career, you need that. You need that initial boost, whether in college, ideally, or sometimes even later, like through a CA or a CFA course, right? Next one, please. And then, of course, I worked in Kerala for Industrial Bank. That was probably the best period of my career at that time, right? Because there's huge learning curve in terms of, I wasn't in accounting, I was actually a loan officer, appraising projects. That was fun, 3 years, learned a lot, worked with very senior IAS officers, worked with, secretary level people, worked with ministers even, which as you can imagine for a 25-year-old was a great thing and gave me a lot of confidence, right? Next point. And of course, then spent about 5 years in audit with KPMG, with Arthur Andersen, with Ernst & Young, Caroline in Oman and Dubai. Now, audit was there because, it's a great opportunity, a great break into the Big Four. I learned a lot about analysis, about due diligence, about being structured, about time management. A lot of important parts, about focusing on the goals, on the key objectives of audit. Did quite a few valuation assignments as well. And then after 5 years, you think that's enough, right? You've spent 5 years in Big Four. And beyond that, it's difficult, right? To rise to director, principal partner. And I didn't really fancy myself there. So I moved on to industry. Next point. Satvik, next point, please. Yeah. So this was an interesting period. 4 years as a director in real estate development company. If you've heard of the Palm Islands in Dubai, it's a government company, massive multi-billion-dollar projects. Worked with some of the best engineers in the world, the best architects on earth. Learned a lot about engineering, project management, and real estate finance, about valuation. Joined as manager, got double promotion, became director of the largest project, head of corporate finance department, etc., etc. And then next point. At some point, I felt, CA is not enough, probably. CA is Indian qualification, not widely recognized. So I decided to do my CFA, right? And I love the journey. So much learning, so many things new. And what's fantastic is once you're a chartered accountant, then CFA becomes easier because your basics in accounting, corporate finance are super solid, should be super solid. So it was a great international qualification. There's a lot of new learning, management, etc. I had time on my hands, and I was applying it at work because I was effectively looking after cash flows and feasibility studies, right? The property company that I was in. Next one. And then, of course, spent some time in listed asset manager as a executive director. By that time, I'd spent about 17 years in corporate life. And you think, you're 40 now, you've spent enough time, built a network, built a reputation, learned a lot. But then it gets to a point where you feel, what next? CFO, CEO, CIO. I didn't fancy myself there because I thought I was not making an impact. I thought there was lack of autonomy. I thought there was much more to life than earning a big fat paycheck and having a corner office and having an executive assistant, right? So I quit corporate life in 2009, next point, and started my own company, which was actually in training. And fast forward, a very interesting journey, which we can talk about at some later platform. Next point. There were three of us. We co-founded the company. I ran the company. I was teaching CFA and a lot of other programs as well throughout the GCC. We became the biggest, one of the biggest financial training companies in the region. We sort of became very attractive to a US multinational called Kaplan. You probably heard the name, massive in GMAT and medicine and engineering and publishing and things like that, right? So they bought the company in 2017. So it's an interesting story, right? Of mine, where you start from BCom, then chartered accountancy, audit, consulting, move on to industrial life, become an entrepreneur after that, become a trainer as well, and then sell the company, and now acting as a volunteer, as a podcaster, as a mentor, as a speaker, etc. So now, what's all planned? It wasn't planned, right? Maybe each segment was planned, CA was planned, CFA was planned. So you can't really plan your career for that long. You grab opportunities that come along, you look at what you like, what you don't like, what suits your strengths, what doesn't work as far as your weaknesses are concerned. So that's what I think from a career perspective, my key takeaways would be. Next slide, please. Right, so let's talk about, you can show everything, right, Satvik? Yeah. So let's talk about finance, because that is a very important point. Why the Finance and Investment Club, right? We'll come to that part later. But I think let's start from a high level picture. Why finance? Well, I think finance has a big, is a big advantage for society. It's a big benefit for society because it attacks financial illiteracy, right? You can uncover accounting frauds through finance. You can actually blow apart companies, and you're really good at FRA, financial reporting, to do that. You can actually invest in impactful projects, right? In terms of sustainability, in terms of water or waste management, things like that. You can raise money for worthy causes because you know how it works. You know the UNPBs, you know your IRRs, right? You know how to prepare an offer circular. And you can even turn around a worthy entity. A company which actually means a lot to society, which is probably going down because of mismanagement or whatever, you can turn it around because you know finance, right? Now, on the right side, what is it for you? Why should you learn finance, right? So you can apply analytical and communication skills. I thought one of my biggest strengths, or probably my biggest strengths, are these two: analysis, financial analysis, valuations, and communication. So you analyze and you communicate. Put it very crudely, right? Can you show all the points, Satvik, please? And then for finance, we talk about some careers in finance, but it's vast, right? We talk about commercial banking, investment banking, insurance, we talk about risk management, you name it. You have your choice there, depends on what you want to do and what you can do. Then, of course, if you're really respected in your career, you also become a trusted advisor to CEOs, the companies work, or CIOs, and to clients. And that's a very good place to be, because they look up to you for advice. They rely on you because you're an expert. And then, of course, you manage finances, right? I mean, if you know how to invest and if you learned how to invest, then why don't you apply it in your own portfolio? Why don't you educate yourself about how you can increase your wealth by basically applying what you learned, right? And of course, entrepreneurship. Like in my case, I was a chartered accountant who worked in a big four and then in industry and then jumped to entrepreneurship. But I could do that because of my accounting background, because of my finance knowledge. Because when you're teaching finance, obviously the CA and CFA helps. When you're running your own company and when you're selling your company as well, that knowledge is absolutely invaluable, right? So finance is definitely a force for good. I think over the last decade or so, it's got a bad rep because of the financial crisis, because of what bankers did, because of Wall Street, because of toxic debt. But let's not forget the fact that ultimately it can actually have an impact both at the society level and at the personal level. Next slide, please, Satvik. Right, so what I want to talk about here is why FIC, right? Can you show the entire points, please? So the reality, and we know this, right? And you should know this. The reality is employers want employable stuff. They rarely train you on basics. They don't have time for that. Many recruits, many fresh graduates I've seen, I've hired some of, I've interviewed them, I've taught them, right? They're basically unemployable because of two things: attitude gap and aptitude gap. And of course, we all know that a lot of what you study in university, while helpful, while relevant, is simply not sufficient to bridge the gap to be an effective employee at work. So why I love the concept of FIC and why when Satvik reached out to me, I said, yes, definitely. Because what you're effectively doing or will do is you're learning by doing. You start early as well, right? Rather than learning by doing at work, you're learning by doing at uni. You're learning two things, right? Broadly, you're learning basically skills. What skills? Modeling, valuation, writing, macroeconomics. You're also learning, by the way, whether you realize it or not, quite a few interesting life skills that go far beyond research reports and consulting. You're learning about planning, teamwork, delegation, how to be accountable, how to deal with failure when you make bad investments, how do you survive, how resilient are you? And very importantly, something that everyone forgets and everyone overlooks because everyone's focused on IQ, you'll also learn a lot about yourself, how to manage your emotions, or what they call EQ. So I think from that point, FIC ticks many boxes, and I would urge all the members to basically focus on both the attitude side and the aptitude side, because there's a lot you can learn. Next slide, please. So investment banking, right? Let's briefly talk about the various pros and cons. So whenever you think about finance, the first thing comes to mind is IB. You want to work with Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, blah, blah, blah. So can you show both, right? Satvik, pros and cons. So you have the pros and cons of investment banking. Now, I don't want to read it out to you. These are self-evident. The reason I put this out here is because people normally only see the pros, the plus points. But I think before you jump into any job, career, you need to know what exactly lies ahead. So typically what happens when you go for an interview is, and when you get a job, you're only aware of 3 or 4 things: the title, the responsibilities, the salary, and maybe a couple of other things. You're not told and you're not aware of what are the downsides, what are the hidden opportunities, what are the minefields that you must not tread on. So I think IB is a classic example of that, right? You learn a lot on IB, right? You learn to communicate, you make money, you learn how to deal with pressure, and it gives you some good client connections. But what are the cons of working in IB, right? It can be very boring, can be very torrid, very grueling. Job security can be very low. And some workplaces, not all, can be very toxic. It may not be up for you. That's investment banking for you in a snapshot of that, right? Very big sector in the world. Next slide, please, Satvik. Another sector you look at basically, especially if you're studying or looking for CFA, is investment management, right? Which is basically asset management, portfolio management, covers research, bond research, stock research, whatever it is, right? Again, you have pros and cons, right? It's, you can make some money. It's very technical, more technical than IB. There's a lot of growth. It's less stressful. You have less hours compared to IB, right? But again, the cons are there. So the cons there, by the way, and Satvik sort of mentioned that earlier about research, in a way, is that automation is taking over, right? You have artificial intelligence and machine learning gradually coming into all these areas. So basically, you need to learn how to use software. You need to learn how to use Python, for example, or SAS. Passive investing is becoming big. What's passive investing? Because active managers are failing to perform and can't generate enough alpha, what Satvik mentioned earlier. Basically, there's trillions of dollars pouring into exchange traded funds and index funds. And that means, they don't need fund managers. They don't need analysts anymore. You have market risk, which is, of course, what you call about volatility in the market because of geopolitical events, because of financial crisis, because of COVID, whatever it is. And of course, you don't make as much money than IB. It's almost like, more risk, more return, less risk, less return. But there are pros and cons. There's nothing like a perfect job or a perfect career. Right. So is it only IB and is it only investment management you can go and look at? No. So there are other options that we have in finance as well, right? Next slide, please. So I would urge you to look at areas beyond these two areas, right? This is what you normally hear of. For example, is corporate treasury. There's consulting. There is credit risk management in banks. There is a very fascinating and very rewarding career of actuarial science. It's a very tough exam. Very few people pass that, but the pay is pretty good and it's quite mathematical and scientific as well. You have corporate finance where you go work in a company like I did and you evaluate projects, you help raise money for the project. And there's project finance, which is in banks, for example, or big financial institutions where basically you evaluate multi-billion-dollar projects, tie up with other banks, fund a massive project. Or you can even become a financial journalist, right? Quite a few CFA charter holders and CH charter accountants are financial journalists. They work for top newspapers and magazines and journals, and they investigate and they write fantastic articles in them. So careers are far more than just working in Goldman Sachs or working in an asset manager or a mutual fund. Next slide, please. So which brings me to the next point, right? Very important point. How do you know what is for you? And that is one thing that people take a long time to discover. What is the sweet spot? Probably seen this icon before, right? Or this image, which pretty much shows the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is the sweet spot where the four things: your passion, what you like to do, your mission, what the world needs, your vacation, what you can be paid for, and your profession, what you're good at. They intersect. Now, this is a great graphic. It's a great theory. It works rarely early in life. So what happens is, let's take one by one quickly, right? Now, passion keeps changing. Today's passion is not next year's passion. So what do you know about that? Well, you've got to work at it, right? You've got to keep on working in different jobs. What are you good at? Profession. Well, that's easier than that you can think of because you know what your skills are, right? So I knew earlier on my skills were analysis and computation. Not that difficult to figure out. What you can be paid for. Now, there's no point being passionate about something and being very good at it. You don't get paid for it and paid well. So that's something you got to look for. So look around you, see what are the well-paying jobs. And finally, mission. Now, mission is, you might think is a bit of a, what you call luxury, something like self-actualization in Maslow's hierarchy. But when you reach a certain age, or maybe even at your age now, I feel that, you know what, I need something more than just a fancy title and a great paycheck. I want to make an impact. So how do you find the sweet spot, right? Is also very important. Can you, next slide, please? And so how do you find that? Now, I've also done an executive coaching program. And by the way, this link on my website takes you to a very interesting blog I wrote last year on how to find your career, your ideal career, right? The 4-factor career theory, they call it. So try that out. Next slide, please, Satvik. Now, the point comes to, okay, how do you know yourself? Because so you think this is your passion, you think this is what you're good at, but then there has to be a structured way of doing it. So there's this interesting psychometric test called the Big 5 test. So the Big 5 test, what it does is basically it basically ranks you or evaluates you on 5 criteria: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Now, why is it so important as far as careers are concerned, especially careers in finance? I'll tell you why. I'll take a very simple example. Now, investment banking, I already told you, requires a very high level of resilience, long working hours, and working in difficult environments, right? That means your conscientiousness has to be very high and your neuroticism must be low. You must be calm. Now, if you don't meet these boxes, or if you can't be, low or high, as I mentioned earlier, in these 5 parameters, you're going to find it miserable to work in investment banking, as an example, right? So you should know yourself. So, and there's a self-assessment tool. It's called Find My Why, www.findmywhy.com. Try that. This is some very interesting reports that you can evaluate yourself, find what you're good at, and where you will shine, and where you'll be not so good at. Do that, and you'll find yourself. You'll find more about yourself. You know more about yourself. Right? Next slide, please. So we come to the secret sauce, which is really quite straightforward, right? Probably recognize a picture of Jordan Peterson, right? Famous Professor Jordan Peterson from the University of Toronto in Canada. Now, he's of course written a lot. He's spoken a lot. The YouTube videos of him online. Now, he basically said what? Of course, you need 2 things to succeed, obviously, right? IQ is one, and hard work, or what you call conscientiousness, is the second one. But within that, there's something called industriousness, which is basically what? Is not just enough to be orderly. You have to be industrious. Basically, you have to work diligently in a focused way. Now, that also, just like IQ, has a strong genetic component, like everything else in life, maybe a trait in life, right? Like seeing humans. But if you set up micro habits, if you have a structured plan, like a daily routine that I follow, for example, I mentioned on LinkedIn quite frequently, you can get there easily. It's not like something that you have or you don't have. So that is basically what you call, in a nutshell, what you require to survive in a corporate career, right? Next slide, please. So what I've done also in the last 1 year, and which I think Ritu mentioned, is because I saw these gaps in employability, I saw these gaps in work readiness, where millions of people are graduating annually, but they are very naive about what the job requires and what careers mean and what are the implications. So I said, let me start a podcast. So the Real Finance Mentor podcast started with that idea and continues with that theme in mind, where I interview on a monthly basis somebody that I find interesting and who has gone through a transformational journey. So, for example, this lady that I've interviewed and whose podcast will go live in a few days, she did a BCom, went to UK, did a master's there from Cass Business School, then quit all that after working in JP Morgan for 2 years, investment banking, corner office, great job. Quit all that, came back to India, and now is teaching. And coincidentally, what she's doing is financial literacy. So which also syncs with the message of FIC. So it's people like that I want to talk to, that I want to spread their message, right? And so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of us at our age, 40s, 50s, we have gone through trial and error because we didn't have mentors, and we wish we had mentors earlier on to tell us what not to do and what to do. You have the benefit of podcasts, YouTube, internet, all those things, and this is a great way of learning. So I think you should go to the website. It's called www.realfinancementor.com, therealfinancementor.com, and you'll find this is the 19th episode. You'll find lots of blogs and book reviews and a lot of other interesting stuff as well. It's all free because I wanted to access everyone else as far as possible, right? Next slide, please. And with that, we come to the end of the session. I hope I'm not over time. We have, I think, about 5 minutes, right, Satvik, for the Q&A. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Yes, sir. It's 5 minutes.
Yeah. Anyone has any questions, feel free. Don't be shy.
Sir, I believe there are a few questions on the...
Yeah. So I think, so for a career in finance, which according to you is a better option, an MBA or CFA? I think the right question would be to ask yourself would be what career do I want first, and then you work backwards and look at the qualification, right? So very quickly, CFA is for investment management. You want to get into portfolio management, research, bond research, stock research, valuations, private wealth management, wealth advisory. That's CFA. It's technical. It's a practitioner's qualification, right? You're bound to a strict code of ethics, etc., etc. If you want to be in investment banking, if you want to sort of have a much more wider scope, if you want to get immediate placements after you finish, if you want a particular brand on your CV, if you want to build a network among alumni, for example, then MBA is probably a better bet, especially if you go to a top school, right? Not one of the top schools in India or overseas, because there you will get all what I mentioned. You will get great learning, you meet some fantastic alumni and professors. You will have a brand on your CV. There'll probably be some great campus placements at the end of the course. And you can enter investment banking, for example, because with CFA, investment banking is a very long shot. MBA or a master's, you have a better chance. I hope that answers your question. So Satvik has a question, right? How do you think we can integrate? So you see that question, Satvik.
I would like to say that there are people who are privately messaging, and I would be putting it across in public.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sure. So do you want to ask me the question, Satvik? Because I can't see all the questions. Can you ask me the questions on, if you don't mind? Thank you. I can't hear you, Satvik. I think you're on mute.
Yes. So there's a question. It says, how do you think we can integrate finance, which is up to industry standard, in our former curriculum?
I think that's something for the university, of course, and college authorities to decide. But one good way of doing it is if you look at the CFA curriculum, and I may be a bit biased here because I'm a CFA charter. Right? If you look at the CFA curriculum, it's actually very practitioner oriented. Level 1 is foundation, level 2 is valuation, level 3 is portfolio management, including behavioral finance, risk management, etc. Now, a lot of universities around the world have incorporated a significant part of the CFA curriculum in their BCom in accounting or BCom in finance, for example, specialization. That's an excellent way of, not reinventing the wheel. It's already there. It's a brilliant curriculum. Been tested for the last 70 years. It's updated every year almost across all levels. Incorporate that, become what they call I think they call the program partner of CFA Institute. So a lot of universities opt for that. CFA Institute works closely with universities and helps them integrate the CFA curriculum as far as possible. I think the minimum is about 70% of the CFA curriculum must be integrated in the university curriculum. And that's one great way of, and the other advantage of that obviously is you can do your CFA easier, right? Because you've already been through a lot of the curriculum. CFA level 1 at least becomes quite easy for you and probably even 2 and 3. The second way you can make university more practical is exactly what you guys are doing, right? The FIC, which is why I said, I like the idea a lot, because we're looking at research, consultancy, valuations, advisory. We're pretty much doing what a lot of employers expect from a finance graduate when he grows within the firm. So I think that's two ways I can think of top of my head how which you can sort of integrate finance into the realistic side of finance into your career.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So we have another question coming in by private message. So,
shoot.
So you have been in so many diverse careers, and
right.
As you said in your presentation, there are so many diverse aspects to working in finance. So, what do you think some of the things that people should keep in mind are when it comes to transitioning between, say, from investment banking to investment management, or from any finance career in general to a different one?
Yeah, good question, right? Transitioning. I get asked this question quite often, by the way. First of all, transitioning works when you're younger. Companies basically do not have a very broad mind in accommodating transition late in your career. So when I say younger, I mean, before 30, for example, ideally 27, 28, by which time you've worked long enough to know what you're good at and what you want to do, right? Whether it is insurance or banking or investment management or IB. So transitioning is easier then. So for example, I know examples of, an engineer who transitioned to investment banking. Quite a few examples of that, right? After getting a master's. So that helps in transition. So first point is transition as early as possible. Don't delay your transition. Number two, sometimes transition requires you to invest some time and money, like getting an MBA or a master's to give you that jump. Otherwise, you're nowhere, right? Especially investment banking, right? MBA is almost essential, right? Some transitions are easier, some transitions are difficult. Right? So, for example, transitioning from the Big Four, work as an auditor, to what you call a finance manager in a client is very easy. Okay? But transitioning the same Big Four from audit to consulting is very difficult because consulting requires some different skill sets. So transitioning depends a lot on your age, depends a lot on the opportunities available, and depends a lot on the skills that you have developed and the qualifications that you have at that time, to put it very broadly. I hope that makes some sense.
Yes, sir. And I would like to mention that there are very specific questions on stock trading, corporate finance. Two things I would like to mention. One is we will be having sessions on corporate finance, consulting, stock trading, specifically on that in the future in FIC. And two, so would you be willing to take specific questions on subjects?
Sure. Let me see what the specific questions are. Let me get a flavor.
Okay, sir. I would, first one question is, which certification is best suited for career in corporate finance?
So corporate finance is quite a very vague term, right? So corporate finance, I assume he means or she means working in a company in finance. If that's the case, then a chartered accountancy would be helpful because you look at financial statements, right? It's not essential, but it's helpful. Or ICMA or a CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants qualification. Any qualification in financial accounting or management accounting is very useful when you're planning to work in corporate finance. Now, if you're working in India, Chartered Accountant, CA makes sense. If you plan to work overseas, CIMA, for example, or CGMA from the American AICPA Institute makes sense. So you pick your qualification based on, of course, where you want to go to, but also maybe which part of the world you want to work in. If you're going to immigrate to Canada or Australia, look at the qualifications that are recognized there, those markets, right? So it depends on jurisdictions as well. But yeah, a chartered accountancy or a professional accounting qualification is a fantastic foundation to start a qualification, to start a career in corporate finance.
We have some more questions on the same vein. So now we have a question. Is there scope for FRM in the future? It looks quite interesting. I've developed an interest for it, but wanted to hear something from a mentor.
Okay, I'm going to be very blunt about this, right? I have to be. I don't want to mislead anyone. So FRM is obviously is a financial risk manager qualification. It's a two-part qualification. Its first part is foundation. Second part is very specialized, focusing on banking industry. It's a good curriculum. It's a tough exam. Now, the problem with FRM is that it is not as well recognized or as well respected as some other qualifications like CFA. Partly also because the body that promotes FRM has, in my opinion, not done enough to promote the qualification in emerging markets. They're basically big in the US and North America and UK, right? So it's a niche qualification that has lagged behind. To be honest, if you go to a bank and say, I have an FRM qualification, can you hire me in risk management? It is not going to do the trick a lot of the time. Whereas if you have a CFA and go to somebody and say, I want to work in investment management or stock research, they might look at you seriously. You know what I mean? So that's my take on FRM. So a lot of people, by the way, they do their BCom, then do the CFA and FRM. In India, we have this tendency of accumulating badges. Do BCom, MBA, CFA, FRM, CPA, CIA, and you go on, right? So people accumulate it. Now, does it really result in them making some significant career shift? I don't know. I doubt it. It doesn't give you as much of a boost as a CA or a CFA would do. I'm not saying it because I have those qualifications. FRM is far more niche qualification. Risk management is a very tiny area overall was compared to, say, financial accounting or asset management.
Thank you, sir. We'll take two more questions that we have already got, and we'll close off the Q&A session. So one Question is an MIM worth it, or should we wait a few years to go for an MBA itself, considering how MIM gives us an earlier breakthrough, but is not recognized worldwide?
Sorry, what is MIM? Sorry, what is MIM? I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's a Masters in Management.
So the question is
International Management.
Okay, I haven't heard of that qualification. Is that from Christ University?
No, I assume it's about a general degree, as in MIM the degree and MBA the degree.
Right. Okay, so I think I mentioned it before as well, Ashwin, right? MBAs, a lot of people in India do MBAs right after college, right? You do engineering or you become and then do an MBA, right? From IIMs or whatever. That's become a practice. I personally think that doing a master's only helps if you have at least 2 to 5 years of work experience, right? Without that, you don't really appreciate what goes on in a master's or MBA program. So my view is, get some experience and then do an MBA and then move on and do investment banking or whatever, right? That would be my words of advice to you. Yeah.
So one last question, we can close off the session. So this is an interesting question actually. Does CFA facilitate a career in private equity?
Oh, good one. Okay, that's a very interesting question. Does CFA facilitate career in private equity? So CFA is what you call a buy-side qualification in a way, right? As in, you can work on the buy side or you can work on the sell side, right? Sell side is brokerage, buy and investment banking. Buy side is mutual funds, private equity funds. So yes, it does help because you're valuing investments, you're analyzing investments. However, private equity as a asset class is not that deeply covered in CFA. So CFA is a massive, you can think of CFA as a mother qualification with lots of specializations, but mainly focusing on portfolio management. Private equity is what you call an alternative asset class, and alternative investments are not covered in depth in CFA. There's a qualification called CAIA, Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst. It's a global qualification. That's probably more apt for alternative investments, although nowhere as well respected or as popular as the CFA. But yeah, private equity and CFA does make sense, definitely.
Okay, thanks a lot to all the questions, and we have got a lot of questions on CFA, on CFA to CPA together, and ACCA, MBA, and all that. So as I mentioned, that we are bringing on ACCA people who are doing something in the ACCA industry and MBAs along with their CPA and CFAs. So we'll be doing that in the near future in FIC itself. We have lined up the corporates and industry experts in that. So thanks a lot, Vinod sir. Thanks from my side, and I would like to give it back to the MCs.
Yeah, just one request before a handover. Could someone share my LinkedIn address with the audience, please? So that they can reach out to me if they have any queries, and happy to answer any queries on CA or CFA or finance careers.
Yes, sir. We will be, we'll be sharing your presentation also with the link too. So, is there anything else, sir?
Absolutely not. Thank you so much once again, and yeah, look forward to great prospects at FIC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are indeed honored to have you amongst us today. I'm sure all of us will definitely take them into our future financial endeavors.
Thanks, Reyes.
We take immense pride in every event that happens within our college. But none of this would have been possible without the backing and support of our director. I now call upon an individual without whom this department would be nowhere close to where it is today. Professor Biju Toms, everyone.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Because I can see the buffering happening when I put the video. So, first of all, my hearty appreciation to the organizers of the event, especially the members of FIC Club. And in fact, I'm happy to hear from Vinod Shankar, his career tree and his wonderful insights to some of the good questions from my students. So once again, first of all, let me thank all the organizers and all our chief guest of the day. One thing was very interested was I went into the people icon. I looked at how many participants are there. So many. I'm so thrilled to see 160 plus, 14 plus panelists. It's an amazing event. In that context, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In that context, it's a brilliant event. When department organizes events, I find the number of participants on the lower scale. Now this time, I really appreciate the kind of initiative that the students have made it. So many participants are there. Fantastic. So once again, congratulations to you, the students, and also Matthew Varghese sir for being the faculty organizer. And what better model that you can get to emulate and seek guidance. One particular aspect which has been worrying me over this pandemic time is if you compare with the same period last year. Now we have only maybe 2 more months to be in March. By March last year, we had 56 programs, major events and medium events that occurred, and all these events and programs had really had a high amount of learning and a great amount of exposure to the students. But unfortunately, this time the number of events have been very, very insignificant in numbers. But any initiative like this, department really appreciate it, because all these events at the end of the day do quite a lot of learning for the students. So whenever I'm asked to talk about, many people ask me, how do you judge a good university, good institution? So generally I say the reputation of the university, the kind of curriculum, the kind of pedagogy in place. Then we talk about brilliant faculty members. We look at who are the stakeholders the university connect with. But one most important thing I treasure most, or I highlight often, is the brilliant students in those institutions. And this particular aspect, this particular component of a great university makes a huge difference. In terms, I would say, in terms of learning, the peer-to-peer learning would be a great asset for that institution. Senior to juniors. This year, if you ask me what is the biggest concern that as an individual, as a faculty that I have, I would say the students, especially the juniors, have lost the mentoring by the immediate seniors as well as their super seniors. So it's a quite a kind of a concern, because if you complete one academic year missing this particular component, definitely I don't think it will add value to the junior students. So first of all, again, let me congratulate all these efforts. I just happened to read a post recently which says, I lived, I loved, I missed, I tried, I worked out, and so on. And finally it said, I made mistakes, but at the end, I learned. So all these attempts, the interaction of, say, club, all those things would ultimately contribute to one's learning. So, once again, thanking all of you for the initiative, and department is always there to support any initiative from students, because these initiatives will always lead to greater results. And as Satvik rightly said, this has to be sustainable. So how well you create the next level of leaders is going to be a challenge. And if you happen to do that, it will definitely be a great asset to the department and to the university and to each one of you participate. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Biju sir, for your constant encouragement.
Every great achiever is inspired by a great mentor. When we are to fight against the financial world, in our inception, we look out for a role model, a leader, someone who we aspire to become, someone to push you in the right direction, someone to empower the group, someone who inspires you. Who better than Professor Matthew Verghese to be a mentor for all these budding financial enthusiasts? I request Matthew sir, the coordinator of the FIC, to enlighten us with his words of wisdom.
Well, Satvik did mention about the 3 pillars. He called it the 4 pillars, but I'll say the 4th one is repeat, so I won't say much about that. But he talked about learning to begin with. And Eric Hoffer has said, to learn anything, you require a certain amount of confidence. He says, not too much, not too little. If you have too much confidence, you will think you don't have to learn. If you have too little confidence, you will think you can't learn. And that's why a club like FIC is so pertinent. Because like Satvik said, it is about the alpha. Everyone has a role. You may be the best at what you're doing. You may be a beginner, but there is something in it for you. The second pillar that we talked about was practice. Again, practice is all about taking the opportunities and the chances that come your way. But somebody had said, unless you have trained yourself for the chance is only going to make you look ridiculous. A person or a great occasion is worth to a man only as much as his practice, his learnings, his experiences will enable him to make of it. And that's why, again, a club like it, when you come, you learn, you practice, and that becomes what you will take to the marketplace. Like Mr. Binod said, at the end of the day, there is a gap between what you learn in class and what you apply. And a club like this is here to bridge that gap, to make you more proficient in whatever it is that you're doing and what you bring to the marketplace. And the third pillar of FIC is about networking. It was Brian Tracy who said, you are the average of the 4 or 5 people you constantly associate with. In a club like this, where you have like-minded people, networking, what I call in mild terms, is mastermind. You're masterminding with people who bring something to the table, who have a same wavelength and vibration like yours. Imagine the learning that you can take from a club like this. They say excellence is not a one-time act. It's a habit. They say it's all about high intention, sincere effort, skillful execution, intelligent direction. And when we have in our department, our HOD, Professor Kavita Desai, our director, Professor Biju Toms, who are there to intelligently direct us, show us the way, show us the light at the end of the tunnel, despite it being pandemic, then what better place or who better we should look for? And we have an entire student community who have taken the initiative to create this club. This club is by the students, of the students, and for the students. So I would urge all of you to grab this opportunity to come and bring your learning, because I believe that everyone has something to bring to the table. And when you bring that collectively to the table, we become a very powerful force. And then we have guest speakers like Mr. Binod Shankar, who enlightened us today about his transition from one firm to the other, from one field to the other. I can't wait to hear him the next time around to tell me that he has tried something absolutely different. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to stick to one thing. Find out your sweet spot and go after that. And when you are able to do that, not only will you touch your student community, not only will you make the university proud, but you will make the world a better place to live in. So thank you once again to all the students who tirelessly worked behind this. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to interact with a few of you during the dry runs and all that we did. I wish the club all the very best, and hoping to see many of you join this club and take this to the whole new level. As Professor Biju Tom said, it's easy maybe to start a club, but sustaining is what's difficult, or sustaining is where the challenge is. But when you build that next line of leadership, when you know that it's not about you, but it's about the club, that will show fruit. So here's wishing you all the very best. And thank you to all of you who participated today. Look forward to more of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure that with you by our side, we can achieve greatness. And last, but certainly not the least, as the curtain falls on this historic day in the department's history, we call upon Aditya Dadich to give the vote of thanks as a token of our gratitude to everyone who made this event possible.
Santosh Kalwa once said, "It does not matter where you go or what you study. What matters is that you share all the things that you have learned, not only with yourself, but to the entire world." And on that note, it gives me immense pleasure to give the vote of thanks for this auspicious event. I would want to firstly start off with thanking our director, Professor Biju Thoms, without whom this club would not have started. It is with your support that we have been able to start clubs and programs as well in this department. I would like to also thank Dr. Professor Kavita Desai, who is been a very important person in the starting of this club, who helped guide not only the entire core committee, but also every single person who participated in the ideation of this club. I would also like to thank our keynote speaker for the day, Mr. Binod Shankar, who inspired us with all of his thoughts and shared his knowledge with the entire audience over here. I would like to thank Matthew sir, Professor Matthew sir, who played a very pivotal role in the formation of this club and the successful launch of FIC. And coming to the last few people, I would like to first thank the MCs, Shreyas and Ritu, who did an excellent job. And last but not least, the audience. I would like to thank you guys for sticking around for the entire event and for all your insightful questions. Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of this event. I'm sure today will mark an important day in the history of this department that will redefine how DPS students view the financial world. Thank you everyone for your time.